Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Fieldhouse. I'm Blake Munroe, where I'm joined each and every week by Carl Padilla, Tim Buchanan, and Bob Shipley. We're going to talk a little Texas high school football. And Carl, you're actually out and about and on the move at Buc-ee's as the time of recording this goes. But I wanted to ask you, going back to last week, any big storylines, any big surprises, any upsets that you want to talk about to start with?
Well, I guess the first thing I want to talk about is, and I won't mention them, but there's still three schools that have played three games this year and still haven't scored a point. And so you feel bad for programs like that. You hope they get the score. You hope they score in multiple games. It's a reward for the kids that you get to score and hopefully win some games this year. Honda scored 82 last week. And the very interesting thing about that is three of those or 6 points were on three safeties, which I've never heard of before. Now, who knows? Maybe it's a state record, maybe it isn't. But those things happen. The school that scored the most versus a Texas high school football team was from New Mexico. They got 88 last week from Eunice. So those little things. DeSoto finally got back on track. They went down to Corpus Christi and beat Miller before a almost capacity crowd. Kind of like a mismatch, a 6A against a very small, probably 4A D1 next time Miller squad, and one side it's 77-7. So hopefully the Miller kids will bounce back in their district, and which starts in a couple of weeks. Too many district play started last week. The game I went to on Saturday was Brennan and Sotomayor. It was an upset only in the final score, not that the fact that Brennan won. They just dominated, wind up winning 56-0 in a game that was supposed to be around a 10-point game. But you just never know in high school football what you get from week to week. So stuff like that happens, unfortunately. I know Sotomayor will bounce back, but Brennan's got another big game this week. If they beat Harlan, you could probably pencil them in as the district winner. So that's pretty much the report for this week.
Good stuff. Well, I was actually going to save this for later in the show, but you talked about those 80 points, which, obviously impressive. There was a couple of other performances that stood out to me, guys. The Bastrop quarterback, he throws for 550 yards, 7 touchdowns last week. And then one of the running backs from Franklin, he carried the ball 43 times for 365 yards and 6 touchdowns. So my question to y'all, we're seeing these big numbers like this. Is there any, in Bob and Tim, I really want y'all to, go a game that y'all coached when answering this if possible, but a performance that just really sticks out to y'all previously like that? Anything that just popped off with those kind of numbers?
I go back to the 2010 game, state championship game when Jonathan Gray was a junior. He scored 8 touchdowns in one state champion in a single state championship game, and Lamarck was a good football team. It wasn't like we were playing somebody that had an 0-10 record. He just had a phenomenal game. Now he wasn't supposed to score that last touchdown though. I'd already taken him out of the game. He was on the sideline, and we actually had a JV running back in, and his shoulder pads broke. We couldn't get anybody else in the game, and Jonathan goes running out there and scores his 8th touchdown, which set a high school record in Texas for state championship game touchdowns. But that was the biggest, the best performance I've ever seen of a high school kid, running back especially.
Man, and then the state championship at that. What about you, Bob?
Well, I tell you, other than games that I coached in, I'd say Jordan Whittington's performance in the state championship game his senior year for Cuero was one of the best performances I'd seen offensively and defensively. That was pretty phenomenal.
That was a good one. I find the stats from that one. I'm going to look that up actually. And Carl, I'm going to let you answer one of your more memorable performances that you've seen.
Well, I'm going to cheat on this one. It was actually a TV game the week after the Kennedy assassination. Brackenridge and Lee from San Antonio played in Alamo Stadium to a capacity crowd. So we had Linus Bear for Lee and Warren McVeigh for Brackenridge. They both went for well over 200 yards in combined offense, and it was an incredible game from start to finish. Lee won with a touchdown on the last minute, 55-48, and a lot of people in Texas high school football say that's the greatest game ever. And again, I got to watch it on TV because I was way too young back then to be taken to a football game.
Bob, going back to your game there for a second, Whittington, 334 rushing yards, 46 receiving yards, 6 all-purpose touchdowns, and on top of that, was also named the defensive MVP. Phenomenal.
Yeah, that was an incredible performance.
That was a good one. All right, well, let's move along here. You know, last week we started talking about games that we were interested in for whatever reason. I'd like to continue that this week. Carl, I'm going to let you start with what game you're keeping an eye on this weekend.
I'm actually going to go way out west, Fabens and San Elizario. So they play. Fabens beat El Paso Bowie last week. If they beat San Elizario this week, then it's a pretty good shot for them to make the playoffs. And that it's not as little as I thought by looking up the record. Same with the San Elizario. If they make the playoffs, it's not, like first time in 10 years even. So they've been to plenty of playoffs before. San Elizario, if they win, will have 3 wins in their first 4 games, and that'll match their best win total in the last 7 years. So, for those reasons, it's just a different kind of game. One team can pretty much at least lock in their ability to play for a playoff spot, and that'd be Fabens. If San Eli wins, then they tie most wins in a season since, I believe, 2019, and they have a good shot at making the playoffs themselves.
Coach Shipley?
Well, I'm glad I got a chance to go before Buck because I'm going to say Euless Trinity and South Lake Carroll.
Oh, that's really mine.
Which is probably the one Buck was going to say. I don't know that for sure, but both teams are undefeated, and Euless Trinity, of course, is I think ranked number 8, in some polls, and Carroll came off of a big 52-3 win over Byron Nelson, so that's a game that if I was going to go on the road and buy a ticket, that's the one I would go to.
Okay, Coach Buck.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to go west now. Abilene Wiley and Stephenville. 2 really perennial powerhouse type football teams over the years, and I just anytime they play, it's a big game, and I'm not sure that they haven't kind of taken the place nearly of Stephenville Brownwood, but it's just as big a game. Another one out in East Texas, a small school, is Woodville and Diboll are playing. Now, neither one of them are ranked as high this year as what they've been in the past, but I think it's a 1 to 2, maybe 3-point game prediction, and that ought to be a really good game.
So, Bob, you also stole mine because I was going Trinity and South Lake Carroll as well. But I'm going to go to your neck of the woods with Albany playing Coahoma. And, they've only allowed 11 points defensively in 3 games. Of course, Albany, always a great team, both of them 3-0. So I'm going to go to your Abilene area neck of the woods, Bob, and pick that one. I think that one's going to be really interesting, and we'll see what both of those teams are made of, but I can see it being one of those defensive slugfests. So definitely keeping an eye on that one, even though it's the smaller classification. All right. Well, our next thing I wanted to do, guys, a couple of weeks ago, we looked at some film, and people really loved that. It was the Texas commit, and I want to continue that this week with Kosi Okpala from Maid Creek. Last week, he had 6 tackles and 2 sacks. I'm going to put his film up here and play it, but I kind of wanted y'all to break down, what you're seeing, what y'all think about him. And then Coach Shipley, I'm actually going to start with you because I know you're pretty familiar with him, obviously. But, what impact you see him having at the next level?
Well, his first of all, it's pretty easy when he's not blocked like that play right there. But he's got great get off the ball speed and quickness, anticipation. He's explosive. And one of the things I love about him is he goes hard every play. I mean, he is trying to wreak havoc every single play. There's the play again. I think it maybe it shows us 2 or 3 times before.
Yeah, I think it's different angles here.
Yeah,
I'm going to fast forward to that next one a little bit and get on with the next one here.
Yeah, reminds me of a Colin Simmons, type player that Texas has. He doesn't really let the defense, get a good block on him because they don't know for sure which way he's going to go because he's so quick. He's good with his hands. And again, when I see him, I just see an explosive, game-changing athlete on the field. And it's not like I don't even know who this is that they're playing, but he's a special player. I know that he's got everything you'd want.
Coach Buck, what are you seeing?
Hell, I thought I was watching Parsons from school for the first 2 or 3 clips. The kid, and you don't realize how, when he scores a touchdown, you get a close-up of him from an end zone view here in a minute. And he is a big kid. I mean, the football looked like a little peewee football in his hands. He doesn't appear to be a 5'10", 195-pound kid. He's a big-looking kid. And I'm not sure if they don't have a good plan to block him or if they just hit him. But either way, he's unblocked a bunch. And I believe it has a lot to do with his athleticism. And as Bob said, the motor that this kid shows in these highlight videos, there's one a little bit later here where he gets blocked at the line of scrimmage, and he turns around against Katie and runs them down after about 30, 35 yards. So that shows the hustle that he has. I think I might be able to win a couple of games if I had him on defense.
Carl, what are your thoughts on Okpala?
The funny thing is I only know what Jerry Hamilton tells me, but with Cozy on the team, this seems to be their best team in several years, and somebody in the state actually is picking them to beat Jordan. So that's a quality team. If they do that, then that Maid Creek's got a good team, and they have a little bit more than just Cozy to defend people and win games.
Yeah, he looks good. There's no doubt about that for sure. All right, guys, let's see. Before we get out of here, I did want to ask you, coaches especially, I mean, you're 3 weeks into the season now. You're getting ready for district play. Some obviously are already about to play district, as Carl said. But, I mean, at this point, do you pretty much know – do you have a good feel of your team? I mean, do you know, are there any – I guess – do you still feel like you can see major improvements at this point, or are you kind of are what you are as you're heading into that 4th week?
Well, I believe at this point you basically should know where your team is. You should know who your playmakers are, where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are. You should be developing a plan for district or the rest of the season on how to get the right guys in the right places at the right time. With that said, if you don't continue to improve though on a daily and weekly basis, you're not going to be as good as you want to be. That is the biggest thing that coaches have to remember at this point. You don't win a state championship in the fourth week of the season. You've got to continue to get better. I've seen a number of teams be 0-3, 1-3, 2-3 early in the season, and then just get better and better and better, and then hit the playoffs and really get better once they get to the playoffs. And that's what you've got to do. But at this point, you should have a good idea as a staff what your team is capable of doing and how to get the best out of them.
Bob?
Yeah, I think I certainly agree with that. Tim should know as well as anybody. But yeah, I think there's still one thing that I noticed more times than not, that as the season goes on, and I've mentioned this before, you'll have some guys get dinged up. Unfortunately, you may have some guys that are out for the season. But the funnest thing for me in watching a team evolve is when you see somebody that you weren't counting on step up and take the place and just blow everybody away with what they've been able to do. They in most cases were not good enough to beat out the starter, but it's exciting when they far surpass what in your mind the staff thought they were capable of doing, because you can judge a kid's speed, you can judge his strength, and you can judge his preparation and all that, but you can't judge his heart. And sometimes you don't know for sure what that's going to be until he's been pressed into that situation. But strategically, we always try to stay just slowly evolve the offense and the defense as the season goes on. Obviously, you don't want to show too much stuff. A lot of the teams I had some really good teams, and I'm talking about to the point, especially at the level we were playing at, you could almost blindfold and throw a dart at a play list and call that play, and it would be okay. Those are very rare. That's happened maybe 3 times in my career where we had some Division I athletes at the 4A level, and that is a lot of fun coaching it, but it doesn't necessarily make you a better coach. What makes you a better coach is when you can, by week 3 and 4, you kind of know what you have and what you're capable of, and now it's trying to adapt your schemes to fit what you have. We all go into the season, you think you have a good idea of what you have, but just like Texas right now, if Arch doesn't make some drastic improvement, they've got to step back and take a look at who they are as a team and how they can best utilize what they have on the team. And apparently last week it was Arch running the ball more, which is apparently going to have to be a bigger part of their game plan. So it's just the season is an evolving process, and you keep adding little nuances to your offense and to your defense, but you just continue to try to fit the pieces of the puzzle together to be as effective of a team as you can be, and that's the fun part of coaching, in my opinion.
I know I said that was going to be the last thing, but when you started talking about Arch, I just have to ask, and I think Carl left us to go get some of that Buc-ee's beef jerky because he's gone, but hope maybe he'll come back. But just real quick, guys, I mean, you're talking about Arch Manning. You have a situation like that where you're kind of needing to restore that confidence. How do you, as a head coach or whether, offensive coordinator, whatever it may be, how do you instill that confidence in someone like that? And Coach Buck, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I I like the kid. I want to see him be successful. But as a head coach, you've got to figure out a way what they're doing well at this point. And I think Sarkisian is doing this. But put him in situations where he can be successful, whether if it be running the ball like Bob mentioned earlier, or certain passes, certain drops, certain types of protection, whether if it be play action or what it might be, to put him in situations where he is going to be successful or has a better chance to be successful. I haven't watched enough of him to know exactly what that would be. I do know he's a tremendous athlete. And when you get like that, moving them around a little bit and letting them have some success running the ball or whatever it may be is usually what we tried to do.
And Bob, I'm going to let you close this out.
Yeah, well, I think you just try to slow everything down for him, and every rep in practice. And this is Bob's opinion. I don't know what everybody else does, but just try to get him to focus on the task at hand. Every rep and every play, have all of his focus on that play, not about the play before or the week before or the game ahead. This play. What do you have to do to make this play be as successful as possible? Okay. And then you do it the next play. And then you do it the next play. And then you do it the next game, each rep of each game, and try to keep his mind so occupied with the present moment that he doesn't have time to let doubt and stuff creep into his head. And I think Buck's, is right on, and then give him something he can do that he's good at, that he can have some success, to build that. But from all the people that I talk to that watch it every day, they say that he makes those throws in practice, and they're not near as concerned as we are about it because they've seen him do it. So that just tells me that the speed of the game is something that he's going to have to catch up with. He's pressing too much, and above all, and I think the most important thing that he has to get into his mind is have fun. He's not having fun. Nobody's the only guy out there I saw really having fun besides Parker Livingston is James Simon, the running back. Mm-hmm. He was having fun. Rest of the guys on offense weren't having much fun. You remember when Arch scored the touchdown last year against A&M, and he got that mean mug in the camera? I mean, he had that swag. He was having fun, and he's not about to show any swag now because he knows he hasn't done anything to show some swag. And I'm not, and I mean, it's the way the game is now. I taught my boys when you score a touchdown, you hand the ball to the ref, act like you've been there before, all that, I never have been a big swag guy, but that's just the way it is now. And guys celebrate and they have fun, and that's just the way it is now. And I want to see them having fun. And obviously, having fun is when you win and you're successful. And so putting all those things together is one of the many things that coaches have to do that they don't get enough credit for. I guarantee you, all of Buck's career, he was a psychologist and a therapist as much as he was a football coach, trying to get young kids to believe in themselves and to believe in their teammates and believe in their coaches and believe in the scheme, and getting the players to rally around him and encourage him. I just hope the team can stay together. There's enough people throwing rocks at him outside that it certainly don't need to be throwing rocks at each other, and I don't think they are. But the defense can get frustrated because the offense isn't producing what they should, and that's the time for the defense to come over and jack those offensive guys up instead of saying, "Come on, man, we just get off the field." They need to hear positive things. And I think once he gets settled in, from like I said, from the reports I've heard from practice, everybody's as shocked as we are because he has a talent and he can do it, and he does it every day in practice. He just needs to settle into the games, catch up to the speed of the game, and just have fun.
Yeah. Makes complete sense. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for y'all's input on that. I was very curious just to hear what y'all had to say. And of course, thank you everyone for tuning in. That's going to do it for this episode of the Field House. We'll be back same time, same place next week. So for Tim Buchanan, Bob Shipley, and Carl Padilla, I'm Blake Munroe, and we'll see you next time.